Hello, my name is Joseph McDermott. I'm a solutions architect at Clever, and today I'm going to be talking through Black Friday 2020 and preparing your Magento instance and making sure you have a smooth sale period. So I've only got one slide to go through today, and this contains the vast majority of the problem points that we find when we investigate problems with integrations with Magento customers with Clever. So as long as you go through all of these and make sure everything's looking good, then you should be fine. So I'm going to briefly go through these now, but then I'm going to show you a bit more information about what each one of them means with some examples. So the first one is to make sure you're on the latest version of the Clever extension, which is currently 2.3.13. Make sure your cron is configured, ideally using an external cron. I'll explain what that means in a moment. Ensure you're using the collection method for data sync. If you're using any third-party data import tools, to make sure that the native Magento's updated at column for products is being updated. And finally, to keep your Magento indexes up to date. So let's dive into the Magento admin panel first to go through these in order. So first of all, we've got a Magento instance here, 2.4.1, the latest Magento version. And we've got the latest Magento extension from Clever, 2.3.13. The reason to have the very latest is we've actually made some improvements in terms of data sync settings over here. And you'll be able to see we've added a lot more information about what all of these settings actually do and how they should be configured. And we've also improved this snapshot of information down here, which covers the current sync status, the cron status, and also the logs file status. So these are really important for ensuring you're monitoring a healthy Clever integration. I'll talk about what these mean in a moment. First of all, I'd like to jump up to the top and go through the frequency here, because I'm going to talk about how to configure the cron. So we have this set to hourly right now, which means it's going to be using the internal Magento cron. And any of the values up to daily will use the internal native Magento cron. So if you set this to run every 3 hours, then every 3 hours there'll be when you run the Magento cron run command via which your systems administrator will have set up, it will also run the Clever data sync. Now, if you take a look at this link here, Magento 2 data sync, you'll see that we've included some information about the native Magento cron, which is the default option, but we've also included our recommended approach, which is to use an external cron. And that's where you'll tell your systems administrator to set up something that looks a bit like this, where every 5 minutes or whatever schedule you decide, you'll run the Clever sync store code command for a particular store view, and you output the result to some log file. And if you've got multiple store views, you can set this up multiple times, so once for each store view. This is the most efficient way of synchronizing data with Clever, and it's our recommended approach. Also, if you're using the Magento Commerce Cloud, you can find information here from Magento actually about how to set a similar thing up for your project. So, providing you're using the native Magento cron, if you had this set to hourly or daily or anywhere in between, then you would see this down here, which is cron status. Now, this date is the last time and date that the native Magento cron completed a task to send some products or some data to Clever. So we take this date here from the Magento database cron schedule table. So if you're using the native Magento cron, as long as this value is fairly recent and up to date, then everything is fine. If you see that this is hours or days old, according to your schedule, if you set this to every 3 hours and this is reporting maybe 10 hours ago, then something is wrong with the Magento cron. So you should then go into your log files, the native Magento log files, have a look at the database table, cron schedule, to look for any exception messages, try and figure out why the Magento cron isn't running. Now, if you've taken our recommendation and gone with an external cron, then one of the steps is to set this to never. And if I save this, I'll just show you what this looks like. So when we have the frequency set to never, you'll see that the cron status over here says disabled. That's because the value that was appearing here is no longer useful to us, because we're no longer using the native Magento cron schedule to sync with Clevu. We're using the schedule that your systems administrator has defined over here. So don't worry if you see disabled here, this is perfectly fine. Next, I'd like to take a look at this sync status. So this date is the date that the last product, category, or CMS page was sent to Clevu. Now this could have been either via the cron, either via the native Magento cron or an external cron, or it could have been if you chose to run a command line script to synchronize, or it could be that you've done a manual sync using one of these buttons down here. So this represents the last piece of information that was sent to Clevu. And we take this directly from the Clevu product sync database table. And I'll show you what this looks like right now. So this is a little snapshot of the database where we have the Clevu product sync table. And for every record that has been synced with Clevu, we store this value here. So this represents product with ID 1. And we know that it was last synced at 1845 for store ID 1. So what we'll do is, this is the value that we will populate up here. So we use whatever is the last entity, so whether it was product, category, or CMS, whatever was last synced, we show it here. And the reason for this is so you can see at a glance that you've got a healthy integration with Clevu. If this value is quite old, if it's showing many hours old or many days old, then something is not working. Either your external cron that you've configured isn't running properly, so in which case you might want to check these log files over here to look for clues. And there could be something, some errors happening in the store where you want to check the Clevu log file, and you can actually find the Clevu log file down here. You can download it directly. And we recommend that if you're encountering issues that you switch the log level to debug to get absolutely the most verbose information, and that will be written into this log file. And you can look for any error messages or any particular products that are causing problems, and then you can go and try and find out what's happening in Magento. So all being well, you'll have an up-to-date value over here. This will either be up-to-date or disabled. You'll have a healthy log file being written to if you chose the external cron, just to ensure that everything's running okay. Next, I want to take a look at the lock file status. Now, these lock files are important. So this part of the lock file is the store view. So every time we start a synchronization with Clevu for a particular store, one of these files is created. So this says that this particular store is currently running, so lock it. Don't allow any other syncs to run for this particular store. So you might find if you've got multiple store views that you have multiple lock files at any given time. So these are fine for the most part unless this date is quite old. So if you find that that it's the 3rd of November today, if you find that since the 29th of October you've still got a lock file over here, then something's wrong. The kinds of things that can go wrong are if when the sync process starts, this file gets created. If that process didn't complete for any reason, let's say the server ran out of memory or the server had to restart or crashed or any number of things, then this process doesn't complete, and so this file doesn't get removed. And what that means is, because this lock file exists, no syncs are going to happen for that store. So if you do see an old value over here, you'll want to either manually remove that lock file, or you can use this setting up here, automatic lock file removal, and you can configure a schedule to come and remove any of those stale lock files automatically. So Once again, as long as this value is up to date and as long as these values are reasonably up to date, then you'll know that at a glance everything is healthy for this integration. Finally, I want to scroll down to the bottom of this configuration section to show you the use collection method. So this was the next item on the agenda. So we recommend you set this to yes. And you can find out more information by coming to object versus collection method, which is over here. I should mention, in fact, actually, if you want to learn more about lock files, there's a link here where you can click on Clever lock files and you can read about what is a lock file, why do they become stale, etc. So it's all over there for you. In terms of back to the collection method, in short, when this is set to no, we will be loading all of your products one by one. So if you've got 10,000 products in your store, when this is set to no, we're going to load 10,000 products one at a time and send them to Clever. And that's a very slow process. With this set to yes, we do that in batches. And so it's kind of like a bulk update where it's much faster to process through your entire store. So we definitely recommend that you do set this to use collection method yes. If this is no, what we also do find is that it uses more memory. And some stores that we've investigated in the past have this set to no. The data sync will run. It will run out of memory, and it will cause these lock files to be created and left as stale. And as a result, the sync with Clever is not happening. So there's a number of reasons that we recommend that this is set to yes. Okay. Next was ensure updated app is updated. So let's take another look at the database. In the native Magento database table catalog product entity, we have a column over here, updated app. And this value is important to the Clever integration. Excuse me. We will use this value to know if there's something to do on a particular product. And we do that by looking at our Clever product sync value, which is 1845. We compare that to the updated app value over here, 1837. If this value is newer or more recent than this one, then we know there's something to do on this particular product. So it will be synchronized. If this value is newer than this one, like it is in this situation, we'll know that there's nothing to do with this product, so there's no need to send any data. So if you have some kind of third-party system or some database import tool which is updating products directly in your Magento database, it's important that you're also ensuring that this value is being updated so that we can compare to this one. If that process doesn't happen, then Clever doesn't know that this product has been modified, so this is really crucial for a healthy sync. Finally, keep your Magento indexes up to date. So I'm going to demonstrate this with an example. So here we have product A, which has a price value of £100. If we look at this product on the front end, we can see also £100 on the category. And on the product detail page, £100. So this is all up to date. Let's go ahead and update this value to 200 and save. Now we can see that in the Magento admin panel, we've got the correct price of 200. And if we reload the product detail page, we see as expected, 200. And if we load the category page, bearing in mind that this was 100, and we reload, okay, this is unexpected. So the product price on the category is still £100, even though we've updated it in the Magento admin panel. And it doesn't matter how many times you clear the cache or reload this page, it's still going to show £100. And the reason for this is because the Magento indexes have not been updated yet with this new value. And this is the value which Clever uses for the sync. So because we're using collection method, we're loading collections of products in batches, just the same way that the Magento category page does. So if this value is here is incorrect on the category page, then the value that gets sent to Clever is also going to be incorrect. So what do? It's quite simple. You just need to run the cron. So you should be doing this anyway. You'll have a system that regularly runs the Magento cron. And if we just run this now, you'll see that Magento in the back end will update the database to add the index values in the correct location. And now if we reload this page, we see the correct value of 200. So that's the most important thing really, is if you're to make sure that you're keeping the Magento indexes up to date. Make sure that you're keeping an eye on these values to make sure everything looks healthy. And if something doesn't look healthy, to go and investigate. So if there's something that looks unhealthy in the cron status, go and check the cron logs, go and check the Magento cron table, or go and check your data sync cron entries. If something looks unhealthy in the sync status, then come over here and check the Clevu search log for error messages. Also check your native Magento error logs. Try and find out what's happened. And if you have lock files which are remaining over here, then you can remove them. But also you need to investigate why that lock file remained. So go and have a look at, again, log files, system level log files, for if you're running out of memory, or if there's any system problems, or maybe you need to increase the memory limit over there, these kinds of things. So there's lots of things that you can actually do on your own to find out if there are any issues with your Clevu sync by actually looking at the integrity of the data of your own Magento instance. 9 times out of 10, we find that if there's some sync problem where you've updated the price of a product and it's not displaying, it's something to do with either a lock file, a cron not running or not configured correctly, or some errors that are present in the Clevu log, where you'll be able to find some clues as to what's happened in your own instance. That being said, if you have any problems, then you can of course get in touch with Clevu support, who will be happy to help. So that's about it. We wish you the very best with your sale period, and yeah, look forward to continuing into 2021 with you. Cheers.